Extraordinary footage shows how a Ukrainian FPV drone operator blew a Russian assault boat out of the water in the Dnipro Delta. The vessel and the 7 Putin troops on board were thrown high in the air with the force of the explosion. The assault soldiers landed in the water, and most were seen swimming towards Nestryha Island in Kherson region, which Russia has been seeking to control since last year. In scenes too graphic to show, the survivors of the boat explosion were killed by drone-dropped grenades as they scrambled onto the island. A report on the ambush stated, "It is noted that there were several boats, on which landed more than 15 occupants. The Birds of Madhyar drone unit disrupted the operation of the Russians and eliminated at least 7 Russians." Note that Nestryha Island is the last before the mouth of the river and actually the last island on the right bank. As such, it is strategically important, as the positions on the island allow shelling the right bank Kherson region with mortars and artillery. Both Ukraine and Russia have developed attack drones as military weapons as war continues to ravage Europe. This comes as Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said on Thursday that Moscow will retaliate with strikes on British targets if British weapons are used by Ukrainian troops to attack Putin's territory. Zakharova told reporters that British targets on Ukraine's territory and beyond its borders could be hit in such a scenario. This stark warning comes after British Foreign Secretary David Cameron said Ukraine had a right to use weapons provided by London to hit targets inside Russia. He said, "Just as Russia is striking inside Ukraine, you can quite understand why Ukraine feels the need to make sure it's defending itself." Russia responded to Lord Cameron's assertion with outrage and cited it as one of the reasons why it has opted to hold exercises this month to simulate the launch of tactical nuclear missiles. Meanwhile, this is a direct escalation of tension around the Ukrainian conflict, which would potentially pose a threat to European security, said Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. But British Defense Minister Grant Shapps has accused China of preparing to provide Putin's forces with lethal aid in its ongoing war with Ukraine. Speaking at a conference in London on Wednesday, Shapps said British defense intelligence had evidence that lethal aid is now, or will be, flowing from China to Russia and into Ukraine. "I think it is a significant development." On the ground combat side, Vladimir Putin's military is suffering from personnel and equipment shortages as their advance stutters against resilient Ukrainian armed forces. Vladimir Putin's forces are now reduced to using 59-year-old loaf vans as their main resupply vehicles because of a shortage of suitable vehicles. Footage from the Russian frontline and drones on the battlefield shows the ancient buses, officially known as UAZ-452s, being used to transport soldiers to the front. The vans, colloquially referred to as bukhanka, which translated into English roughly means loaf, are referred to as such because of their resemblance to a loaf of bread. Their design dates all the way back to 1965, but despite their age, they are being called into service because of how few armored troop carriers Russia has at its disposal. Whilst the bukhanka are set to be replaced by Chinese-built Desert Cross all-terrain vehicles in the future, they are all Russia has in the meantime. Footage shared online shows the brutal conditions inside the aging vans, which are powered by 2.7 engines sending 112 bhp to all 4 wheels. Soldiers can be seen bouncing around inside as the van makes its way over rough ground. An able off-roader, the bukhanka is slow, thin-skinned and therefore vulnerable to drone attacks. Alongside footage of operating bukhankas, other clips show multiple burnt-out vans and even an abandoned van adorned with Russian Zs being rammed by a Ukrainian tank. The extensive use of the bukhanka is one symptom of a Russian military suffering from crippling shortages, preventing it from making major advances towards the city of Kharkiv. However, A report from the Institute for the Study of War suggested last month that this would be unlikely because Putin has a shortage not of munitions, but men. In a statement last month, the think tank said, the Russian northern grouping of forces likely also lacks the quantity of personnel required to conduct an operation as ambitious as the seizure of Kharkiv city successfully. Russian opposition outlet Verstka reported in March 2024, citing a Kremlin source, that the Russian military assesses that it needs 300,000 additional personnel, roughly 60% of the approximately 510,000 personnel Russian forces currently have in Ukraine, in order to launch an operation to encircle Kharkiv city. Earlier this month, President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed on social media that the Russian military had failed to take Kharkiv, and in Instagram he also wrote, "A significant outcome is that the Russian army has failed to execute their Kharkiv operation." "We are currently restraining them to the best of our ability, destroying Russian units that enter our land and terrorize the Kharkiv region. The direction is reinforced, and it will be reinforced even more. At this time, letting Ukraine attack Russian military targets directly with its wonder weapons is beginning to turn the tide of the war in Kyiv's favor," says a retired UK colonel. "For too long, Ukraine has had to fight the invading Russians with one hand tied behind its back," Hamish de Breton-Gordon wrote in a commentary that was published on Wednesday. However, at last that is beginning to change. From now, with permissions granted from various Western countries, Ukraine can strike targets far deeper into Russia, de Breton-Gordon said. Last month, Politico reported that the Biden administration had given Ukraine its permission to use US-provided weapons on Russian targets in Kharkiv. Russian forces launched an assault on the region in May as part of a summer offensive on Ukraine's second-largest city. For too long, Kyiv was fighting an uneven battle, putting it in the impossible position, and now that has changed. I think the Kharkiv front will begin to turn back in Kyiv's favor, de Breton-Gordon said.